Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I know it's unusual for a mayor to make a primetime address, but these are extraordinary times. We're in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic, and for the past week, our nation has been in turmoil over the murder of George Floyd while in custody of the Minneapolis police, spawning legitimate marches for justice and unfortunate violence by opportunists. Even in the best-case scenario, these last few months have put you and your loved ones on edge. The disruptive events downtown Saturday night, instigated by a few and separate from the peaceful protests for justice and reform, certainly didn't help. But throughout the COVID-19 crisis, the world has once again seen the very best of humanity through the people of our city, and we can all be proud of that. Thank you to our local heroes, like 10-year-old Alejandra, who has spent the last 3 months of her free time making face masks and selling them to benefit other families at her school. Paul, a COVID survivor who has gone on a personal crusade to save lives through plasma donation. And the doctors, nurses, grocery workers, farm workers, and firefighters who are working on the front lines of the pandemic day after day. To the thousands of you who are following the guidance of the medical professionals by physical distancing, staying home when possible, and wearing masks. A study by the Big City Health Coalition and Drexel University has shown you have collectively saved more than 9,000 lives in our community. Thank you for doing your part. But the COVID-19 pandemic has been a challenge unlike any we have ever seen in our lifetimes. As a result, too many Americans, too many San Antonians, have seen their health threatened by disease, desperation, or both. And while we've successfully navigated, with agility, more than 4 months of traumatic developments that swept across the globe and through our own neighborhoods, there is still much to be done. By acting early and decisively, and with compassion for each other, we've thwarted an unbridled spread of the coronavirus and even deadlier consequences. A reminder, the coronavirus hit our radar on February 7th, when the first of 3 evacuee missions arrived at Joint Base San Antonio-Lackland. The base housed hundreds of American travelers who had been exposed to the virus. These missions were a blessing in disguise, as they allowed us to coordinate our response early. The first case of COVID-19 contracted in San Antonio was reported on March 13th, the same day Fiesta was postponed. 10 days later, County Judge Nelson Wolf and I issued stay-home, work-safe orders, and working in close collaboration, the county and the city each crafted 7 emergency orders. And I've worked closely with my city council colleagues to extend the orders to effectively cover the duration of the COVID-19 peak in our community. To date, nearly 3,000 San Antonio residents have tested positive for COVID-19, and 75 have tragically died from COVID-related causes. The best way to honor their memories is to remember that COVID-19 is an invisible enemy, and to take the proper care to ensure that we and those around us don't get infected. By staying home, practicing physical distancing, and wearing masks when close to those who don't live in our households, we've slowed the spread of the virus and increased medical capacity. We are prepared for a second wave. Our community has flattened the curve and avoided the nightmare of an overwhelmed healthcare system by working together and protecting each other. We've been guided all along the way by our incredible healthcare professionals. Our Metropolitan Health District has served our community around the clock without hesitation. And local health professionals rose to the challenge on our health transition team to provide guidance as we move towards a healthier San Antonio. From the directors to the epidemiologists, doctors to nurses, contract workers to contact tracers, our city is in your debt. The courageous men and women of the San Antonio Fire Department have done a stellar job on the front lines transporting COVID patients and conducting tests in every corner of our city. And the steady leadership of our city management has ensured the entire operation continued seamlessly. While we've done remarkably well, the coronavirus pandemic has taken a damaging toll on our economy, just as it's done around the globe. Slowing the spread required slowing economic activity. The loss in tourism business has led to losses in leisure and hospitality, and fewer people are able to spend money at other local businesses. The damage ripples onward. We're now in the early phase of reopening our businesses and reigniting our economy, and this must be done carefully. Consumer confidence will be necessary for our businesses to flourish again. We must be certain we are proceeding safely to build that confidence. Our health professionals will continue to guide our steps, preventing another retreat that moving blindly could bring. So as we reopen, we must also act to prevent the damage caused by COVID-19 from further eroding our economy. So I want to thank the leaders from all over our city that stepped up on our economic transition team to provide the necessary guidance to safely reopen San Antonio businesses. We truly are all in this together, and we will continue to face an unprecedented test as a city and a community. COVID-19 has moved the ground beneath our feet. It's changing our landscape, shifting our immediate needs, and further exposing long-term problems that have too often plagued us. While I'm proud of our community's response, this is a long and difficult journey, and we're only at the beginning. The fundamental question we have all had to grapple with is, how do we ensure our community is healthy? Beyond preserving life and safety, how do we ensure that every family in San Antonio can come out of this ahead of where they were when they started? Our economic situation as a city and as individuals has suffered major blows that must be addressed. Unemployment is soaring, and thousands of our neighbors are unable to pay the rent, pay down their mortgage, or even put food on the table. We're seeing these issues across the country, and they're impossible to ignore in our San Antonio, because as a community we are so close-knit. So as we survey COVID-19's damage, we can't turn away from the inequities in the economic and social structure of our city. COVID-19 has been an unwelcomed stress test, exposing buried fault lines in our community and massive disparities in educational attainment, life expectancy, access to the internet, and economic opportunity. These problems need to be taken head-on now if we are to emerge from this crisis as a stronger city. In the wake of any crisis, we're forced to take a full accounting of our community to understand its core problems and to reassess our priorities. What has been made clear in the last few months is that just as underlying health conditions make the coronavirus more deadly, pre-existing poverty and inequities have made the economic challenge more catastrophic. We're justifiably horrified that the number of people seeking help from the San Antonio Food Bank doubled to 120,000 people a week as a result of COVID-19. But in our zeal to return to normalcy, we cannot forget that the San Antonio Food Bank was already feeding 60,000 people a week before the pandemic. This is unacceptable. As we rebuild our city's foundation, we must ensure that every family has the ability to eat, that every child born in San Antonio will not go hungry, and that they have the opportunity to thrive. The COVID crisis has shown us that San Antonio's neighborhood boundaries often serve as barriers to that opportunity. The zip codes that lack adequate internet access are the same zip codes that lack access to basic health care. Where you live should not determine your access to basic resources, basic opportunities, or basic support from your city. Because if the coronavirus has taught us anything, it's that we're all connected. What happens to each person in our community has a direct effect on you, just as what happens to you has a direct effect on all of us. So yes, the fault lines have been exposed, but it's our collective duty to rebuild, together. These fundamentals have been beyond the reach for far too many San Antonians for far too long, and that has held us all back. There's a great quote attributed to Coach Popovich that says, "It's not about any one person. You've got to get over yourself and realize that it takes a group to get this thing done." And that's what we're going to do. Our top priorities must be managing the crisis, preventing both an economic and health catastrophe, and providing opportunity for all San Antonians as we restore our livelihoods. We need all hands on deck. As we chart this course, we must put aside previous plans that made sense before the pandemic sent shockwaves through our community. Rivers adapt when they encounter obstacles, so we too must adapt our plans for the future of San Antonio. That means new investment in our transit system must wait. So in November, we will not be asking voters to redirect the 1/8 cent sales tax that becomes available next year to the transportation system outlined in the Connect SA process. We will champion new efforts in our transit agency to assess and fund the priorities of delivering effective, essential service where it's needed the most. This is a painful but necessary decision for us. But direct action to ensure a healthful economic recovery is mandatory. It means rebuilding now. We will take the time we need to fully understand the depth of the pandemic's financial damage before making new investments. This also means delaying a decision about the future of the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program funding. The slowdown in sales tax collection means that funds the program, that the amount committed by voters 5 years ago will not be collected until the summer of 2021. That's much later than expected. Prudence requires that we wait until next year to make a final decision about the future of the program's funding, which for decades has made progress to ensure an adequate amount of clean recharge flows into the aquifer. The aquifer program, meanwhile, will continue while we cope with COVID-19 and begin the rebuilding process. Repairing the damage of this upheaval alone will require our top priorities to focus on rebuilding our city as a place that is stronger, equitable, and more resilient. This crisis has brought us collectively to a crossroads. The decision of how we respond is ours alone. We cannot allow the virus-spawned wave of unemployment to evolve into more poverty and more homelessness. City Council and city staff already have taken the initial steps, including the $25 million Emergency Assistance Fund to help people knocked out of their jobs by COVID-19 pay their rent, mortgages, and utilities until we get our economy reopened and running again. On Thursday, the City Council will officially set priorities for our restoration effort when we approve spending plans for the $270 million San Antonio has received from the Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as the CARES Act. It's essential that we get this right, and I'm determined to craft a recovery that builds our community in a more equitable way. This is the time to reboot. We must emerge from this crisis as a community that doesn't accept widespread poverty as a fact of life. The funds available for recovery will be targeted at housing security, workforce development, universal internet access, and small business support. We can't allow rampant food insecurity. And it's unacceptable for any definition of normal to include thousands of students who lack access to education simply because they don't have internet service at home. The internet is a utility as essential as water and electricity. The digital divide must be bridged, so we must have a broadband network that reaches every family in San Antonio. Housing security is a necessity. We cannot and will not allow homelessness to grow as a result of this pandemic. San Antonio families who have lost their income because of COVID-19 can't also be allowed to lose their homes. And small businesses will be receiving help so they can get back on their feet and provide jobs for our community. The vast majority of San Antonio jobs come from small businesses, and we will not abandon this important segment of our community. The funding that San Antonio has received through the CARES Act will help us prevent a collapse of our community, but the work has only just begun. Just as you take a hard look at your resources and focus your family's priorities on what is truly important, so must I and the Council look with the same lens if we are to emerge stronger. San Antonio's recovery, just like this country's and perhaps the world's, will not happen overnight. It will take months and maybe even years. The road will be long, but if we endeavor together, we will prosper. We know which way we must go, and we know where we must end. We must find a healthier normal. We must end as an equitable city, where all residents have enough food, a roof over their heads, and a fair chance at an education and a good job. But we'll also have to cope with the governmental consequences of the economic slowdown. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's estimated that the city's current budget will have $200 million less revenue than anticipated. City Manager Eric Walsh already has suspended more than $80 million in budgeted spending to address the shortfall. Additional steps will be required to balance this year's budget, and the next city budget is expected to be much tighter. City Council will be forced to make the most difficult cuts in memory. Business as usual is out of the question, but I know my colleagues are up to the task. However, to stimulate the economy as quickly as possible and create jobs immediately, I've asked our city management to accelerate all construction and infrastructure projects that are scheduled and funded. This includes our 6-year capital improvement program, as well as the projects that have been waiting to commence from the voter-approved 2017 bond program. Safely, but surely, let's get to work. Now, the CARES Act provided one-time funding. We'll also need to address our economic reality with long-term action. That's why it's critical that we continue the overwhelming success of Pre-K for SA, which will be on your ballot this fall. After you have voted to approve this program in 2012, thousands of San Antonio's youngest residents are now on a path of educational success and economic mobility. I hope Pre-K for SA continues to earn your support. But long-term action to ensure a sustained economic recovery requires us to build on both ends of the educational pipeline. Imagine a city where your ability to pay did not determine the level of education you could access. A place where initiative and work ethic are enough to climb the ladder of economic opportunity. That's the kind of equal opportunity that is fundamental to the American dream, and it should be found in no less measure here in San Antonio than anywhere else in the United States. The new normal demands that the growing number of families, which was 20% in 2018, the most in the nation, who are locked in intractable poverty, have the keys to economic mobility. We must strive for a community where every child, regardless of where they are born, has access to affordable and quality education and professional certification programs, which we know is the best way to build a durable future. Tonight, I'm beginning an effort to determine how we can best free ourselves from the anchor of socioeconomic inequity through education and training. I'll be convening a group of community leaders to help us chart the path forward. They'll report back to identify the highest priority efforts we can make as a community to improve economic opportunity for all. And we will act. COVID-19 has changed our landscape. We must adjust our agenda accordingly. The damage caused by this pandemic is forcing us to focus on ensuring that our community weathers this crisis intact. We will not abandon San Antonians to COVID-induced homelessness. We will not accept that an economic underclass is a fact of life in our community. COVID is a tragedy, but the pandemic can be an agent of monumental change if we use it as a catalyst to solve the challenges that have hindered our ability to reach the next level. As we rebuild, we will address our long-term problems. We will ensure that San Antonians will not be denied a quality education because they don't have access to the internet. And we will provide for an infrastructure of opportunity so that San Antonio residents can be part of the workforce that the future economy requires. These are difficult days ahead. We're in the midst of a long fight to contain the deadly virus, and we're facing certain economic challenges. San Antonio will emerge as a stronger city with a population prepared to fully engage in our modern economy. Our community has always been fortified by what we've survived. Now, we begin the task of building from our foundation, and in doing so, giving rise to a more resilient, equitable city of opportunity for all. Time and again, light emerges from darkness and beauty emerges from despair. The compassion and resilience that define our unique culture will continue to get us through. For the worst is temporary, and the best is yet to come. Thank you.